Hello there. Welcome to Force Ghost Conversations. This podcast is your home for cozy deep dives into all things Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent properties. This is your host, Anthony King, and each week I will be joined by fans, creators, and believers in the principles from the galaxy far, far away to discuss the thematical elements from our favorite Lucasfilm properties. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Force Ghost Conversations. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season and thank you for making us a part of your new year, part of your 2026, if you will. Thank you for joining us in this particular episode where we are looking back at the past 5 years and particularly at that Disney Investor Day of 2020, which was a wonderful moment in time. And we'll reflect on the projects announced that day, what came to pass, what didn't come to pass, and what it really meant for the state of the industry both then and now. We are joined by, again, Dr. Greg Cass from the Long Take Review podcast, as well as from the Breakfast Pack over at the Rebel Base Card, to just really have a wonderful conversation about the state of the industry and with a clear eye about the context of when this came out and all the things that were said and what happened, what didn't happen, and just the miracle of filmmaking in Hollywood. So it's a wonderful conversation. I hope you stay tuned for that here. We are in the Cloud City Gossip segment here. I will note I did pre-record this episode again. Next week, folks, we will be back without me doing some pre-recordings here. But just because of the holidays and travel and whatnot, I just wanted to make sure you guys had episodes, and it just made it easier for me to do this so that I wasn't scrambling and also just all that stuff of worrying about the sound quality and whatnot. I have the full control over it if I recorded earlier, and I hope you guys enjoy these conversations here as well. So with that. This is where we do Cloud City Gossip, the news, and all that stuff in Lucasfilm adjacent galaxy. But I don't know what's happened. So anything that has taken place over the last 4 weeks here in terms of news, I will cover it in next week's episode. So be ready for that. Be on the lookout. It's happening. If you want to continue the conversation with us, we can be found on many different platforms. So first off, we do have a Patreon where for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to Force Ghost Conversations goodies. We also have a TeePublic store where you can buy direct Force Ghost Conversations merchandise, anything with our logo on it. So it'll be t-shirts, hoodies, pillows, you name it. There's a whole lot of different things on there. So make sure you go check out both of those things and support the show, and it helps keeps the lights on in some way, shape, or form here. We also have, if you want to continue the conversation with us, many social media presences. So we're on X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky. I think I named all of them, but if I missed any, I'm sure we're still there if it's a main social media site. So you can just search for Force Ghost Conversations and we'll be there in some capacity, and we'd love to continue the conversation with you there. Anywho, that is all I had for this part of the episode. Let's get into our main segment talking about 5 years of the 2020 Disney Investor Day. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful new year, and we are here in 2026, thrilled to chat about Star Wars. And actually, we're here to look back for something that happened a little bit over 5 years ago now. We're here to re-examine the infamous, you could probably say, 2020 Disney Investor Day, and to break down that incredible evening of sorts was to check all the things that happened. It's still mind-boggling to even consider what all happened that night. We have Dr. Greg Cass from the Long Take Review and the Breakfast Pack over on the Rebel Base Card podcast. Greg, welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations, and how are you doing?
I'm so good, and I can't say I expected you to offer this subject to me, but it was very funny how instantly it all kind of flooded back. What a very specific moment in
was.
fandom and in the world at large that this very, very silly kind of investors call thing was like, such a big deal. And I had fun looking over my memories of it and responding to your questions and thinking about it. So I look forward to discussing it in person now.
Absolutely. Did you happen to rewatch it at all? I know there's a lot of videos of it available on YouTube still of the full presentation, but also of like the mini presentations from each of the various studios. Did you catch yourself like rewatching any clips of it?
I didn't go back and find any of it. It was tempting. I thought about it. I'm like, I didn't check, but I'm like, it's got to be on YouTube. But I almost wanted my like pure memories of like
Yeah, yeah,
the
don't change
weird
it.
day that it was. And a couple things that it reminded me of. One of the things was I remember as they started rolling it out, they had like their social media team. This is also for me
Mhm,
personally the height
mhm.
of Star Wars Twitter, probably when I
Yes.
was most active on there before Twitter became a garbage fire, and then became X.
An even
So
bigger
I
garbage
just
fire.
remembered. I don't know why this memory stuck out to me, but they started the day with the presentation, and the social media team posted tweets and then kept replying to themselves to make
Yeah, yeah,
one
yeah, one
active
big
tweet.
thread.
But what they had done is the first one, I think one of the very first announcements was Hocus Pocus 2. And so then they had tagged Bette Midler and Sarah Jessica Parker. And then
They
everything
got
all
tagged
day
every
was a
time.
response to Bette Midler, not just Disney responding to Bette Midler, but then fans angrily saying, this Marvel show's a terrible idea. How dare you? And Bette Midler being CC'd into it. So I imagine their publicist being incredibly angry about what a mess it was, but it's a very funny time.
Yes, and the poor social media person that was doing the things that day that just made it a little bit of a teeny mistake that then impacted so many people. But also the tweets of people being like, "Hey, they're getting these tweets every not just the
Yeah.
people commenting on the new project that's announced, but also them just being like, "Hey, they're still getting tagged in every message that's coming out henceforth." And boy, it's like a thread of like 50 things at this point. They're just
Oh
but also
man, it was a wild
I
time.
don't think Bette Midler or Sarah Jessica Parker are looking, and frankly, they'll probably take the in hindsight, they're like, "Hey, more people looking at my account, they'll take it."
Yeah.
Sarah Jessica Parker in, Daredevil: Born Again. Anywho, it's hard to believe that it's really been over 5 years at this point now since this plethora of announcements came out from this infamous day. Uh, did you watch it live, or were you just catching up on the threads on the internet?
Well, I remember very specifically watching it live, and the moment again, my memory's a little sketchy, but as I recall it, it was like it started at like 3 o'clock, and then I was somehow like, honey, I'm gonna sit in the dining room by myself with this computer for dinner
Yeah.
tonight. Like it was many hours long, and I remember we've since moved, but it was our first house had this very distinctive kind of kitchen that was very wooden and like knotty pine themed.
Mhm, mhm.
And like I remember sitting my laptop on the table and turning the volume way up and cooking dinner that night, kind of keeping
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
I think it was Marvel before Star Wars, is that right?
Marvel was last.
Marvel was last. So I think I remember it. I think like waiting for Kathleen to come on, and and I still am a giant Marvel fan, but really being excited to see what kind of the post Endgame plans were as this kind of
Mhm,
explosion
mhm.
of Disney Plus content and all that. So yeah, I remember it very well. And again, for me, that house, we owned that house, I think 2018 to 2023. So it is always to me the pandemic house. And like, and this is just so much of that moment in that time that I would spend my whole day watching an investor's call
Yes,
is
yes, yes.
strange, but was a part of our
That's
lives
how it
back
was.
then.
That's how it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, I think the year later was the infamous Disney investor call where they pretty much gave the first Kenobi trailer and
Ah.
and launched the poster and all that stuff and had like a quick snippet interview with Ewan McGregor. So like I remember being in the bathroom at work when watching it live because I was like, I can't be at my desk watching this. So I quickly ran into the bathroom, closed the stall door, and just was like watching on the internet. But yeah, that this was a really wild thing. It's very much a time and a place experience, and all that. I did watch it live as well, but I think to your point there, like the first 2 hours were very much just business stuff. So like
Hmm.
when you're saying like, "Hey, I was at the dining room table watching for a few hours," like that was before like it took 2 hours to even get to the announcements. Like, and
Yeah.
then they would be like, because they'd be like, "Oh, we're starting like our star service across the globe is doing great. Subscriber
Oh yeah.
numbers are up," and they're talking about all the business numbers that shareholders want to hear because this is a call for shareholders, right? This wasn't like meant for us fans to like get this information out, even though they knew that people were going to um, tune into it somehow, whether it be through the announcements that came out or recordings. Because like I watched it, I don't know how you watched it, but mine was on YouTube with a guy in the corner who was streaming it from his computer because he's an investor, and he was live streaming it through his YouTube account. So he actually was like, there's a guy in the corner, kind of like being quiet, and like a live chat going at the same time too, as all these announcements are happening. Um, and of course, this is the time where we can now like cast YouTube to our TV. So I was watching it just in our apartment at that time. Um, and unfortunately, there was I was still at the same job at the university I was at, and we had a dang event that night. So
Yeah.
a virtual event, if as long as one might recall, and it was just kind of our version of like an investor call with some of our top donors and the president. So it was like a big deal, and I had to be in the bedroom and take notes, and it was very not as fun as probably watching all the rest of the announcements. So the Star Wars stuff happened, and then I was like, man, I'm really cutting it close. I gotta go turn on the Zoom room, otherwise these rich people won't be able to hop in, um, and then I'll be really in trouble. So did that, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder what else announcements came up. So then I like quickly avoided all the internet that I could, and then went back to the TV and turned it on, and then went through all like the where I stopped left off at, and then caught up with everything through all the Pixar, the animation studio, the live action Disney studio, 20th Century FX, like all of that was
Mm.
before Marvel. I think ESPN was the only thing that was before Lucasfilm. So Lucasfilm was like pretty much front and center once they finally got into the big nitty gritty of it all. And then yeah, the rest of it went from there. But it was fun. It was a truly time and place kind of experience there. And by my count, Lucasfilm announced about 15 different projects during that presentation. Now I did the math here, I thought I did the math right, but every time they'd be like, oh, and then this thing, and I tried to amalgamate a few different websites to confirm what actually was announced and what wasn't announced. But okay, I think I've got it here. 15 projects, 9 have come to fruition in some way. Unfortunately, 2 of them were canceled prior to their like where we would have liked to see them go. Sorry, Willow and Acolyte. Um, and 6 have not happened yet. They're either in some form of development purgatory or were outright canceled. Maybe they were canceled, maybe they're not. Is anything ever really gone? Who knows? So in hindsight, 9 out of 15 being kind of successes. Do you think that is a successful track record, knowing you're a bit more in the Hollywood game than most people are? If they look at that 9 out of 15 score, would you say that's a success?
It's a tough question, and I'm going to probably tip my hand a little bit at some of the things I want to answer for later questions. But I will say, I do think that that is a typical success rate for a studio, which a
Mm-hmm.
lot of fans have had trouble recognizing in the years since. Right, that the name of the game in good studio management is you get a lot of projects going, understanding that they won't all make it.
Yeah,
And there
yeah.
are a million reasons why a project fails, right? Everything from a creative difference, or like a creator
Mm,
steps away because they have a family member who's ill or
sure.
something like that. Like it can be
Someone gets
almost
canceled
anything.
because they said something stupid.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. And so, it's funny how much it very much feels like back to the Rise of Skywalker days, when it's like, oh, Colin Trevorrow had to walk
Mm-hmm.
away and blah blah. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, well, a lot of that was like he had a really clear plan, and then he couldn't do his plan because Carrie Fisher died, right? And
Yep.
that threw
Yep.
everything into chaos. And
And the
so
Book of Henry came
it's
out.
yeah, yeah. And so then it's like it's so hard to know why something doesn't happen. But I think most Hollywood executives, as I understand the business I am not a part of, would be pleased with that track record, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can get 9 of your 15 actually on the air
Yeah.
in some form, that's not bad. And I think you said it right, which is, of those 6 that are out there, I think there's some we could definitely stick the fork in, but there are a couple that could still happen, and that's just how it is sometimes. These
Mhm.
things take a
Mhm.
real, we've seen a few of these projects in recent years. For better or worse, we saw Megalopolis last year, which Coppola had been
It's
working on
coming
for
back.
30 years. Yeah, so
I don't know if you saw it, Greg, but it's getting some, sold out showings on New Year's Eve. People wanna
every New
see it.
Year's Eve from now on is what he says we're gonna get, and so we'll see. So yeah, I mean, I think that's kinda normal, and maybe we can talk more about whether they should be talking as much about the things they talk about when they talk about them and how
Yes.
that works, so but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I think I would say this is from, like, if you were in the shoes of, like, someone working at Lucasfilm that has signed a lot of NDAs, you would probably say, "Yeah, 9 out of 15 projects that we wanted to announce right now coming to fruition is pretty good over the course of 5 years." Um, I think generally in Hollywood, we are fortunate enough to not know everything and anything that happens in a given day in a studio. Case in point being the recent announcement that, hey, there was a Hunt for Ben Solo film that happened
Just thinking about
that
that,
was
yeah.
basically almost done and ready to go and greenlit up until one guy at the top says, nah, it's not happening. And that's the story of Hollywood is like guys go in, I don't just say guys, but ladies too also go in and pitch projects and story ideas, or they have lunch with somebody and they're like, hey, send me an idea if you want to do something here, and that's the name of the game. And then they like, okay, this goes through a round of like ideas and whatnot, and ideation, and it goes back and forth, and then it goes up a ladder and then down a ladder, and just things are in various stages of development, whatever that means, all the time in Hollywood, and there are scripts upon scripts upon scripts and locked away in archives of a variety of different projects. I mean, there are some IPs that people have that they have to create some sort of development or project script pitch of some sort just to keep the IP under their studio, right? I think Fantastic Four for all those years was the big scapegoat dog for that, where like there's a whole film that's never been released to the world in the 90s because they had to make one every so often in order for it to stay under their rights at Fox at the time. So, like, I feel like this was a gift to us as fans to have this wonderful moment in time where we get all these news announcements at once. But I feel like when there's a disconnect between people of like things get announced and said, "Hey, this is happening." We expect it then to happen as
Yeah.
fans.
Yeah.
We're like, "Hey, if you're coming to us and announcing it being the trades or publicly saying in a conference format that like this is going to happen, then we have the expectation then that it's going to happen when it should actually be like, wow, it's a miracle that this actually did happen." Which is actually the story of Hollywood is like it's a miracle that any film ever gets made, and we should cherish that final product no matter what it is, even if it's terrible.
Yeah, well, and I will say the lesson I take from kind of this investor call to the present is I don't really bank on anything until I see
That's
actual
right.
on-set photos or footage they've released.
Footage, or
Like
even
it's
then, give me a release date and a day,
yep.
and because poor
And
Batgirl,
I
right?
think that's true. That's true. I think Ben Solo, this project we just became aware of, is the perfect example. And who knows how many of those there have been that have gotten through
Pretty
the
many,
script
pretty
stage
many.
and so on. And I do think, one of my pet peeves in fandom, and I have plenty, is, you get these really loud voices saying, we demand news, we demand information.
Yes,
And
yes.
then you get the
And then you get
very
it.
same voices saying, well, you didn't deliver on your promises. Like what happened to this movie, to that movie, to this?
Mhm.
And it's like, it has been a really dry spell. Since this investor call, we haven't had a movie yet. And that is not, I think, what a lot of us expected. I don't think that's what Disney wanted to happen,
Oh, no,
or
no, no,
Kathleen
no, no.
herself. But I think they learned that Star Wars fans are a little discerning, and you got to get it right, and we got to make sure the right project is there. And we finally seem to be back with, I have no doubt now that we will see Mando and Grogu this year. There is a trailer out, and we've seen real active work on Starfighter. So
Mhm, mhm.
I think both of those are on track. I personally still have question marks about the Ray movie because it keeps some's up with that script that people keep working on it and working on it. So,
Yeah.
so I think it's it's really hard to get a movie made. I always enjoy the film cast, another movie podcast, and every episode, whether they have loved the movie or absolutely torn it to shreds because it's garbage, they always just say, and in the end, it's really impressive that so and so made a movie. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
Like the fact that anything gets out and gets to us, even kind of average strength, is a magic, and we should appreciate it.
It really is, and yeah, it's that's a whole other conversation. Maybe 2 years from now, where we can look back at Celebration 23 in London and the three
Mhm.
films that they announced at that Lucasfilm showcase panel that have not even seemingly completed a working script for any of those
Yeah.
yet,
Yeah.
which is wild. That is a different conversation of, hey, bring
Well,
out the talent. We'll talk about these movies here, and 5 years later, nothing yet. Starfighter is
nothing
announced later and is going to come out before either of those
before
even
it.
have like a set photo.
And Mando and Grogu is not the Dave Filoni movie they announced, which is
Yes,
still apparently
still
on
happening.
track or somewhere. And this investor call, one of those 6 is the Taika Waititi movie,
Yes, which
right?
was circulating out even before this call too,
Yeah.
as being an announcement that they kind of were percolating with. And yeah, this actually was where it gets announced. And now every time Taika is out in the world, out in the wild, and does an interview, they're like, "Hey, when you're doing your Star Wars thing?" He's like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
But also, this is the Patty Jenkins Rogue Squadron announcement too that has
Well, that
somehow
was
come back into talking every I feel like every 2 years it gets like, "Hey, we're back up and doing this. It's in development," and then
yep.
canceled, and then back in development, and then canceled. I'm like, which is true?" I don't know.
Well, and that Starfighter is not that movie, right? Like,
Yeah,
that was
it's
also
not. That's
confusing.
right. That's
So,
right. 2 different things.
yes. But I don't wanna talk anymore about Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron because that's my answer for something later.
Oh, well, we'll hold off on that then. So, let's move on to our next question here because it does give more context to, like, I guess, the gravity of this moment here because, for historically for folks who may not have been too super attuned to what was going on then, it it was the height of COVID. The entertainment industry was at a standstill. Shareholders needed to be inspired to keep their investments and stock prices high, and Disney was pushing their direct-to-consumer strategy more than ever. And outside of a celebration or Comic Con, do you think we'll ever see like such a method of mass announcements ever again?
Well, and I think you have the right historical context there to emphasize, but to that, I just want to add it's also the moment where they really have to convince their investors that all the money put into Disney Plus is smart and
True.
useful, right? Like, and so it's hard now at the other end of that when we see all of the streaming budgets being retracted
Just
and shut
halved.
down
Oof.
to kind of see that like
How 5
it's
years
hard
has
to see that
changed.
yeah, and it has to be kind of viewed as a failure or, it at least didn't hit the levels of what they thought streaming could do,
Mhm.
despite a lot of successes, right? But, I do think that it seems unlikely we'll ever get something of this scale again, particularly in that it was, as you alluded to, every part of the house, right? That we will get a Hall H Marvel panel where they'll try to hype us up, and we'll get the Lucasfilm showcase at Celebration in the future, and have gotten a few since then. But I don't think it will ever hit this level again where Disney had
15
everybody
projects?
trotted out
It
at
ain't happening.
once. Well, and you are certainly, more able to speak to like a D23 where they clearly get a lot of parts of Disney all together
Yeah,
to make
yeah,
announcements. But even, I think if you take the whole of this last D23, despite some really cool, exciting things, it's not even a drop in a bucket compared to everything they announced at
that's
this
right.
time.
Yeah, no, it is minuscule compared to what they do. I mean,
Yeah.
they bring out like The Rock and they'll like have like an Avatar trailer and stuff like that, but they're not just like telling you, "Hey, a Willow show is coming," or WandaVision, right? Like all the like,
Yeah.
uh, golly, all the like Moana 2 was announced as a streaming show uh,
Oh, right.
at this endeavor, and then transitions that into a theatrical experience, maybe for better or for worse. I don't know. That's for other people to decide, not me. But it is crazy to think. I don't think this will ever happen again. This was
No.
very much, hey, in the shift in industry, we're investing so much in this. This is what we're putting behind it. Is the entire weight of our of our IP. Like everything was getting some sort of continuation or story. And it was a great time as a consumer, but there's also the downside to it because like these exist in a vacuum of Disney Plus, and we are at the mercy of the company. So if we do have a thing that we like and love, not even just like I always am complaining about Willow not being around, but there are a ton of like other like great Disney shows that I've watched over the years as just the person that's like enjoyed and supported this stuff. I'm thinking like the Mighty Duck show and the Big Shot
Oh yeah.
uh, uh, what's his face from Full House was on, Stamos. Um, there was a lot of other great programming that was like very quickly announced after this, and then had like one or two seasons, and then got the plug pulled on them, and then they're canceled, and not only just canceled, but don't exist on the platform anymore because they don't want to pay royalties
Yeah.
to these people, which is crazy. That we no physical media release, not even like a VHS that I can pull out from somewhere and watch. But that's the downside to really all this here is like you get all this announcements, you get excited for it, something does come out of it, and then it doesn't perform the way that they want it to, and then there it goes. See ya. Sayonara.
Yeah. No, I think you're making me realize this is also, it happens to coincide with like the high watermark of IP,
Yeah,
right?
it
And
was.
that while the studios are all still looking for IP, my favorite example of this is I think last year I saw an interview with Helen Hunt, I think when she was on Hacks, and people were like, "Hey, all these sitcoms come back. When's Mad About You coming back? We all wanted Mad About You to
Never.
come back." And she was like, it already did. We did it at Amazon for a
Yeah,
new
that's right.
season
That's
like
right.
a year ago, and nobody noticed. And to me, that's just it. Like, there was this mad dash to bring everything back. And it had a little bit to do with Roseanne being successful in its
Mhm. Yep,
comeback,
yep.
and a few others of those, Fuller House, and a couple of others. And then it was like, let's scramble and let's do everything. Let's do Hocus Pocus 2. Let's do Mighty Ducks TV show, and all those things. And then I think they found the public kind of grew tired of that mode. And I don't know, I don't want to yuck anybody's yum, but to me, the lesson is usually the new product is a lesser faded version of the old
Mhm,
product
mhm,
by and large. There
mhm.
are exceptions to that. So I do think, the public got wise to it fast, and we'll never see that kind of scramble to pull in all those old properties ever again.
Sure. I mean, well, we're also talking was height of COVID. I
Yep.
think a big thing to note is the visual effects companies were overworked tremendously
Mm,
to the point that
yeah.
they had to unionize, and we're still dealing with the ramifications of that. I think if you look at any film probably between 2021 through roughly 2024, there is a probably high degree level of criticism on any of the visual effects done with any of those, because all of these streaming shows now have the added weight of they have to meet cinema level quality,
Yeah.
and they're including a lot more CG elements to these TV shows than ever before. They're not adding practical things. This isn't your TV of 2008, 2009. This is like, hey, we're making a 8-hour movie, basically 6 to 8 hour movie, and there are some expectations and weight that come with that. And now because of that, that's where like the lack of level of quality perhaps is, because we now have blurred cinema with TV, and there's no, and it adds to like the to why people don't go to the cinema anymore, is because like, hey, I can just
Yeah.
turn on Netflix and there's something just to me it looks equally as good as what I can get at the movie theater, because of all these issues that just like come back and forth. Then we also had strikes, both actors, writers. These are some big threshold moments that could be causes for why some of these projects have been canceled over the last couple of years or weren't as successful. I mean, 2008, 2009 writer strike, there were many projects that suffered because of that or were canceled,
Yeah.
let alone due to that. So you add all that to a global pandemic that shut the whole industry down. You get a lot of money thrown into it. The streaming wars, every place is making content so much, so much, so much. And then now we're in the deflate mode where they're like,
Mm.
no, go back to cinemas, guys. We make more money there, or switch to your ad tier. Please, we'll make more money on on the commercials than you paying for us for the non-commercial package. Um, yeah, it is when historians look back on this time frame period, 50 years from now, they'll go, wow, what a time to be alive, but also, ooh, what a time to be alive, I guess will be the answer here. But I guess that's my next question, directly related to that for you here, is like from a consumer standpoint, was it perhaps a little irresponsible to publicly announce so many projects at one time?
And I want to emphasize you're asking from a consumer perspective because I
Yeah.
do think shareholders
Oh,
have a
shareholders
different
love it. Yeah,
perspective and
absolutely.
they
Consumers, yep.
need this and we keep the stock price high. But I do think it is a mistake to promise so many projects that were clearly very, very early in the creative stage. And this
Mhm.
goes back to the opening comment that their track record is pretty solid, but it looks bad. And I think it fed into this reputation you see a lot on the internet. And this wasn't the first time. I'm still waiting for my Ryan Johnson trilogy, right? From the week before
Oh,
Last
Greg.
Jedi.
Oh, Greg.
And so I just think, all of this has led to this reputation of Lucasfilm doesn't know what it's doing or doesn't know what's going on. And I think that's not at all a problem unique to Lucasfilm. I think this is mostly
Yeah,
normal
yeah.
development and maybe slightly below average batting average here. So I do think a lot of people, and again we joked a minute ago, but there are people out there who love Taika Waititi still and are probably
Hey, I'm a
dying to
big
see that
fan.
movie. Like, my joke about the Ryan Johnson trilogy, I'll be the last one still waiting for that one because I'm very excited for it. And the kind of gesture Kathleen made to, oh, and I want to get away from our properties and produce new movies and the
Yeah.
Children of Dust and Bone and
Blood and Bone.
um
Blood and Bone.
Blood and Bone, sorry, of Blood and Bone. Like, I actually think that to me is in some ways the saddest because it's like Lucasfilm should
Well,
do that,
that is
right?
sad, and then also it went to a different studio after Lucasfilm lost the rights to it, and then
Yeah.
they didn't produce the movie. Whoever I think it was, Universal didn't get it done either.
Well, and just the idea that, I think the promise of having a producer like Kathleen Kennedy, who people forget is a world class producer of the
Definitely has,
greatest
yeah.
films, some of the greatest films in history, is it's a shame that we couldn't do more with the Lucasfilm brand to do more. And hey, and
It is.
LucasArts, let's restart it.
Yeah, bring it back.
So I do think that it was a mistake, and I think it did reputation damage more than it did actual like commercial damage, financial
Yeah,
damage.
yeah. I mean, I will agree too. I think from the consumer standpoint, there is that reputational damage that is caused because of this. I think we are at least my temperature of gauging the temperature of the Star Wars fandom and Lucasfilm fandom too. Let me add that is that there is a healthy level of skepticism anytime something is announced now.
Yeah.
Like I think there was a reason at Star Wars Celebration when they brought Sean Levy out is like they said, "Hey, we're filming next week" or something
Now.
like that, right? They
Yeah.
were like, "We are going to production right away." Like that would they
Yeah.
didn't say that for no reason because they knew people are tired of hearing like, "Oh, this film is coming sometime." Um, even I don't know if you caught like there was the Game Awards earlier this week where they announced two new
Yep.
Star Wars games. Star Wars games are definitely the the other part of this where people hear an announcement and they're like, "That's never going to happen," because there have been a few Star Wars games announced in the last 5 years that have like maybe got one release trailer and then no radio silence ever since. So
Mm.
people are hearing this new like Knights of the Old Republic era game, and you know, I think I've seen the rumors that 2030 is the potential release date for that, and they're like, why
Oof.
would you tell me this 5 years before it's even possible to come out? Like, we might
Yeah.
even be on the
Yeah.
PS7 before before this thing comes out. Like, I'll be a different person in 5 years, guys. Come on. Um, so there is I understand the skepticism that fans have when it comes to these types of announcements because your track record shows otherwise at this point of like you haven't gotten a movie out since Rise of Skywalker in 2019. We know that ever since I mean, frankly, from Force Awakens, there were issues on set, right?
Yeah.
Harrison Ford had his plane accident, and that caused them to delay shooting for a little bit on that film. So that was kind of a rush towards the end. Rogue One, famous for the third act restructures that Tony Gilroy was involved with. Um, Last Jedi was arguably the only one that didn't have problems and came in under budget and on time. Well, I mean, I think it was like October. Ryan Johnson was like, "Lock picture, we're ready to go."
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the sad part is it was the fan community rejecting a lot of some of the aspects of that film, wrongly so, I will say. And then Rise of Skywalker was reactionary to the events of what happened in the aftermath of the Last Jedi, and then Solo too. God, can't forget
Yeah.
that wonderful debacle along the way. I love the
Yeah.
end
Yeah.
product at the
All
end
of
of that
that
too.
right in the context of leading into this,
That's
where
leading
it's like
into
big
this.
promises and yeah. I was just I hope I didn't look distant as you were talking, but I was just double checking because I was trying to remember. And the problem of me not remembering, I was like, there was some announcement they made, and I did just double check this on Google.
Hmm.
It was the
Hmm.
Simon Kinberg
And yes, the Kinberg
trilogy.
trilogy that could be episode 10, not
And when
11 and
that was
12.
announced, like, I have a couple Star Wars group chats, and like 3 days later, somebody was like, "Oh, hey, we never talked about this." And I think it was clear to me that as
Yep. Yep.
consumers, we were all like, none of us thought it was real. Like,
Correct.
why bother getting excited about something when so many of these have not come to fruition? And I think again, we can pick all our ones we want to see, and some of them may still very well happen, but it's just feels so unlikely that we're going to get the majority of them. And I think that's the legacy of this event, unfortunately.
That's right. That's right. I know. Well, I think too the long outstanding Marvel Kevin Feige.
Yeah.
I think he was announced to get a Star
Oh,
Wars
right.
film
Right.
years ago too, and like radio silence on that one ever since it was announced.
Yeah.
um, the Ray film that we talked about as well. The Dave Filoni culmination film has yet to have any news about that type of thing. The Mangold
Benioff
film,
and Weiss,
Benioff and
who
Weiss
definitely
series of
walked away,
films.
but like we have just this long list of the Star Wars movies they never made at this point. And I don't want to make an I'm an old man fan move, but I will just say it's just so different than how things were with George, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
George controlled everything, and when he said, I'm going to re-release the movies with new special effects, it just happened. And when I want to start the prequels, it just happened. And when I want to sell the company and have them make 7, 8, 9, I will just make it happen. So
that's right.
I think that's a part of it as well, is the disjuncture between those two.
Well, you can argue that it's because he was the studio, right?
Yeah.
He's funding these projects. He's like, I want to make a film about the Tuskegee Airmen. No one else in Hollywood is going to do it, so I'm going to fund the entirety of this project. That's how things get done. Is when you have the financial backing to stand up for what you believe in, then it happens. But then when you add the Disney element to it, unfortunately, then there's more cooks in the kitchen that are like, hey, we spent $4 billion on this thing. We need to get some return on investment here. You could even add to the list the Boba Fett film, Josh Trank's
Oh,
Boba
yeah.
Fett film that they
Yeah.
pulled the plug on at Celebration.
Yeah. That
Well,
morning.
fortunately turned into I think the Book of Boba Fett show, which I very much enjoyed.
Yeah.
But yeah, long history of that. And then yeah, I think it's definitely irresponsible, especially as consumers, because we're like, hey, now we just I don't even care anymore. I don't even cover if like a new announcement happens. I'm like, all right, we'll
Yeah.
see. Like, I think I maybe in the notes section will say like, yeah, they announced this. We'll see. Give me a trailer. I'll see. I'll believe it when I see it, kind of thing. Because I think like the Lando show is one of the other things that was announced here, that turned into a movie that now is in development purgatory.
I mean, that's another one that pops up and sounds more real every couple years, but then disappears again entirely.
I think
So
Donald Glover had some health issues too. Maybe of
yeah,
like again, it's like there are so many things that have to go right for something to happen, and
yeah,
this event shows how many of these things have like political things and things behind the scenes and just
yeah.
all this machinations that cause these things to not come to fruition. So speaking of which, let's talk about what surprised you at this event. What new show or movie from the Lucas? Well, we'll just keep to Lucasfilm because there are obviously the many parts of the the Investor Day. But what new show or movie announcement surprised you the most?
I can't go further than Rogue Squadron, right? And again, it's hard. This would have been just before Wonder Woman 1984 came out,
Literally
or
like 2 weeks.
yeah. So I will say I found the first Wonder Woman film to be a revelation. I thought it was so incredible and really well done.
And
The
then
second one I was a little less, yeah, I was a little less sure about.
a
But
fun
so
Christmas day on HBO
yeah.
Max was that one.
So while in that moment to say, hey, we took this woman, she's a great director. We need to have more women directing Star Wars movies. We should
Mhm.
she should get the power to do some of these things. And that first Wonder Woman is incredibly well done. I've taught it. It's a great movie. I thought that was really surprising. And then to have the boost of it being seemingly based on the Rogue Squadron books, kind of,
Could be,
you know,
yeah.
something related to Rogue Squadron, and those that X-Wing series of books is really core to my fandom as an early child of the dark times, right? Like
Mhm,
that
mhm.
trilogy, or sorry, no, that series. I mean, it's 9 books I think by the end of
Couple
it.
books and, the video games too you can pack in there.
Yeah, yeah, it was so important to me, and I fell in love with Wedge. I still list Wedge way higher than he should be, considering how little screen time he gets in my favorite characters. So, that was the one that both surprised me the most, and I was probably the most excited about, because it felt very real. And we were just joking about like, wait till we see footage. They had that little sizzle reel thing where she seemed to, they put some effort into actually making a cool announcement. So,
They did.
um, that is one that when it pops up and somebody's like, "Oh, it might still happen," I get hopeful. I would love to see Rogue Squadron, especially like it fits so well into this Mando world, this time period. Like, let's have the
Yeah,
squadron
yeah.
going and cleaning up the warlords or whoever, in those times. That's the one I was would love to still see too.
I would still love to see it. I wonder what's Patty up to these days, because ever since '84 happened, boy, Hollywood has blacklisted her.
Yeah. Well,
She
and also with the restructure at DC, and
yeah,
I
yeah.
think squandering the goodwill the world had around Gal Gadot as
Also true.
Wonder Woman,
Also true.
right? I think that it deserved at least a trilogy, but got caught up in the reset and the all of that. This is also not a DC podcast, right? I keep trying to turn you into a different show, but
Well, I mean, she's had the availability. That's I guess what I was getting at there. So like,
yeah,
there's something else behind the scenes that is keeping these things from going off. And maybe this the fact that hey, starfighters are focus. We don't need two competing seemingly X-wing shows going against each other.
it doesn't feel dissimilar to Gareth Edwards,
But
really,
also,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
whatever kind of it took him a long time to get to the creator, which we both
it
have
did.
talked about on this show and
And now
enjoyed.
he gets the
But
victory
like,
lap of starting off a new Jurassic trilogy. So he paid his
yeah,
dues.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So I wonder if there is something about her work style didn't work out well, or burn some bridges that is more widely known in Hollywood than we know and on the outside.
Well, when someone writes the book in 50 years of like what really went down with
Yeah.
Lucas, I mean that'll be an incredible tell-all book that maybe Kathleen Kennedy will do the day she retires. Is is like release like, hey, here's what actually happened.
Oh, what a good memoir that would be.
I
Yeah.
really
Oh.
didn't like the way that Lord and Miller folded their socks. Yeah, I'm intrigued because even the Taika story too is like, what's the
Yeah.
deal there? Because like Lucasfilm, you can maybe argue, has been too good at announcing projects with auteur directors that have had a hit, and then they're going into their next project or something like that, and then that doesn't really blow the socks off of people the way that the next one did, and then because they announced some project, they are in some level of development purgatory because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. You're
So
right.
you could say the Benioff and Weiss, you could say even Josh Trank technically,
Trank,
um,
Lord and Miller.
Lord
Yeah,
and
you've
Miller,
named a bunch of them. Yeah.
um, and then Patty and Tyga are in the same vein too. Um,
And then Ryan Johnson being the success version of that, right?
in the
Looper
success,
into
right?
Last Jedi, and then he goes off and proves he's a great talent at running a set, never mind the creative side,
Hmm.
and something's going on with these.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, we've got knives.
Tyke is
Great.
another one who's kind of been blacklisted by all of Hollywood, right?
Really
Like
has. Yeah. The
it
Love and
was like
Thunder experience was not
we
what
loved
people
his
wanted to be.
shtick, and then we got too much of it, and we're like, nope, we're good. Like, sorry,
Really
Love and
was.
Thunder,
Yeah.
goodbye.
Like Jojo Rabbit to
Yeah.
Love and Thunder, and like, oh, no, too much, guys. We're good.
Yep.
And then I actually like Next Goal Wins, but no, not the film that everybody wanted it to be. Hey, it is what it is. It's Hollywood, baby. They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
They made more money than I'll ever make in my lifetime with just a simple flop film. So they can cry into
True.
their tears of cash. I think the announcement that surprised me the most would be Children of Blood and Bone. I think that was
Hmm.
the thing I was probably most excited about. You could argue because like I knew Kenobi was happening. It was announced at D23 prior to this. Andor was also announced prior to this. Willow was kind of soft launched by John Kasdan before this, so I
Mhm.
knew all those things were kind of coming, or at least in the works. We knew Indy 5 was coming, so I
Yep.
didn't like that wasn't the big surprise for me here. Um, I could have guessed because the Ahsoka episode had just come out for Mando season 2. We didn't get the Luke Skywalker reveal just yet. That was the following week, and the time of when they released these episodes. So like them expanding the Mandoverse was not a big surprise yet. Again, maybe Rogue Squadron could have been it, but I think the older I get, the more I love like the non Star Wars, non Indiana Jones side of the Lucasfilm story. So I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, Tucker was a big swing. Radioland Murders was a big swing. You know, maybe they weren't the successes that George wanted them to be, but like they were trying to do something with those films that I respect, right? Because the Young Indiana Jones Chroniclers podcast does a wonderful job of like saying how Young Indy was like the stepping stone to the prequels. Radioland Murders was also the stepping stone to the prequels, right? You could say Willow and Tucker were also those stepping stones that then got to the Last Crusade and whatnot. And it's I think it's fun that Lucasfilm is a studio that isn't just Star Wars, it isn't just Indiana Jones, right? They can create a new franchise. And what could that be if they
Yeah.
developed put all their resources like Strange Magic could have, if it was a hit in 2015, could have been something else that they
Yeah.
have in their under their repertoire, right? Um, so all that to say is, I was excited by the prospect of Lucasfilm not being shoehorned into just being the Star Wars studio that it kind of has become now because of the box office failure of Indy 5, and so on and so forth. Willow being canceled, and now we just get Star Wars stuff from them from now on. Um, so that's the kind of sad part there is I wanted them to be more than just that, and I think George would also want them to be more than that too. And
Yeah.
if I were to pick his brain, so that's where I come down. And also I read the book too, and after this
Mm.
came out, and I was like, this is really wonderful. This will be exciting. I can't wait to see this come out. And then especially as we were still in the wake of the summer of 2020, George Floyd's murder, right? Race relations were very much a part of the story of the day, and this was a film that I think would have really done a great job at talking about different race relations and highlighting people of color to be in lead roles in Hollywood films. And unfortunately, that's a loss that because to this day the film still hasn't been made, whether it's been
Yeah.
shopped around to different agencies and corporations across Los Angeles. So it is a sad one, but like we've been saying here, this is Hollywood. They just they're
Yeah.
they're constantly saying like, "Hey, do a pitch on this," and then it doesn't come to fruition, and then that's how it is. So, of the films that haven't come to pass yet, which would you say are you most disappointed that you haven't seen? Maybe it is still is Rogue Squadron, or maybe there's another one there that you're like, oh, of the six that haven't happened yet.
I mean, probably my most honest answer is Rogue Squadron, but I'm gonna shift over to the Lando movie. I am famously on the record of not being the biggest Solo fan. I
What?
put that pretty low in my Star Wars rankings.
Oh man,
But the part of Solo that is absolute magic is Donald Glover as young Lando, and I would, take 10 of those movies and, I was excited. I I don't remember what they said at the investor call, but at least for a while, it appeared that both Billy D. Williams and Donald Glover would appear, right? It seemed natural that you could have Billy D. Williams kind of recounting a story as the frame.
yeah.
We're in the wake of the loss of Rob Reiner, unfortunately. But the greatest frame narrative of all time is Princess Bride.
Mm-hmm,
Do
mm-hmm.
do that with old Lando telling stories, and have young Lando acting them out. That sounds phenomenal and really great. And it makes me sad because I mean, actually, you just touched on the representation issue. Like, Star Wars doesn't have a great track record, and
No, it
Lando's a
doesn't.
great creation. I think they've expanded him. I think he would technically identify as pansexual
I
at
think
this
so.
point,
Yeah.
right? The character, that is, not the either of the actors. So I do think there's like a lot of storytelling potential to that, and he was just exciting. And I've been a Donald Glover fan for a very long time,
Mhm.
since Community, since his comedy troupe, whose name I'm forgetting right now. Before that,
Oh, I don't even know.
um, oh, and yeah, they had a very funny movie where they were like the Hardy Boys. Very
Oh,
funny, very small movie
I only
called
knew him as a
Mystery Team.
rapper.
Yeah, and then Childish Gambino, of course. So all of that felt like great potential to me. And so if I had my magic wand and could make one of these come out next year when there's a little bit of a quiet calendar, I would pick the Lando
Mhm,
show.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, no, I think that's a great one. I absolutely do. This is one that's like it's happening, it's not happening. It's with Billy D, it's with Donald Glover. From the announcement, they showed the Falcon in Solo. So,
Mm.
um, and they also played music from Solo while Kathleen Kennedy was talking about it. So, it kind of gave the credence that this would be a Donald Glover Lando story. But for a lot of people too, I feel like this could have been technically Solo too.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of like the lost dream there is like, oh well, they could have whatever elements that they were trying to do potentially in a Solo sequel could have been tackled in some way or at least added to this project, which is like the real I feel like loss of in addition to losing another story with the great Lando and seeing where that could go, because I know people really love that Lando 5 issue comic run from like the early days of Marvel canon.
Mhm.
That's a fun one. And yeah, just Donald Glover is great. He's one of the shining many. We love Solo here at Force Goose Conversation. So one of the many shining moments of the Solo film, the incredible film from 2018. Um, I think for my money, I think I'm going to go a little bit more whimsical here and say that a Droid Story project is the one that
Mm.
I'm like, what's the deal with that one? Because that seems like it should be the most easy to happen
Yeah.
in a world
Yeah.
where like they've released like the flyovers and biomes and just like lo-fi stuff that they have on Disney Plus. I'm like an adventure of the droids, like just make it animated. Like I'm sure they can like redo the droids cartoon show of like but in this form and have them do like some fun wacky adventures for 5 to 10 minutes and just release that. Like they didn't make any promises that it had to be like an hour long or 30 minutes episode per thing for like 5 episodes in a season. They just were like, hey, it's
Yeah.
Droid Story and they're going to get into hijinks. I'm like, okay, sure. Let me do that. But literally no words have come out about this project since Kathleen Kennedy said, and a Droid Story is coming out on Disney Plus very soon.
That's
Very soon has
definitely
happened yet.
you're very right that that's the one where it's like, did we dream that?
It really is
Is
a
that
fever dream. I'm
something?
like, did she say that? I don't know.
But to your point, I mean, if yes, Anthony Daniels, but he never says no. And other
Never.
than that, you
Yeah.
don't need any talent. I mean, you need talent, but you don't need. You're not locked into actors or their lives or their contracts. You can get anybody to put together the sounds. The Skywalker sound could make this happen
That's
easily.
literally David Collins will just make it in his sleep probably, and it'll happen. Like what's that's the real story I want to know is like what's the holdup with a droid story? Like,
Yeah,
what is
yeah,
stopping that from coming into production? Like not to hark again on Rebuild the Galaxy, which I really love, but like that seems a lot more harder to make than a droid story, depending on like if they were trying to make it live action or animated. Like nothing, no crickets, zero word
yeah,
about
yeah.
whoever. Like no, they didn't announce like what creators are behind it. Nothing. They just said R2 and 3PO going on an adventure. What could happen? That was it.
Well, and excuse my bad memory, but is Visions announced in this
It was
call?
announced. Yep.
Okay, so it's not like that took the energy or it
No.
became Visions. It was clearly two projects.
Correct.
Interesting.
2 projects announced, and she was very direct about like, "Hey, this is Japanese studio," like very like knowledgeable about like that project. Japanese studios doing something adjacent to the Star Wars galaxy, but in the sandbox. Um, but yeah, this is a out there project that I feel like is a joke every now and then on like the internet. Like, what happened to
Yeah.
Droid Story? Do you guys remember this? It is that fever dream that was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. That was Star Wars: A Droid Story. So, as we conclude here, Greg, what do you think are the lessons that Lucasfilm and maybe even Disney at large too has learned from this massive endeavor?
uh, Pure Hamilton. Talk less, smile more. I do think the lesson is really wait till things are sure. And I certainly don't blame this investor call, but the wobble of trying to figure out streaming versus theaters and stuff, it's been an industry wide thing. Disney is not alone in this, but I think the lesson is, make sure you've figured out the balance correct and wait till projects are at least pretty significantly underway.
Hmm. Hmm.
Contracts are signed, things are footage
Yes.
is produced before you really announce it to the public. And I think actually in that regard, Lucasfilm does probably get the worst of the Disney
I think
children
so. Yeah.
in terms of that. Marvel has its whole own set of problems, not the least of which is Jonathan Majors having his issues after this call. But I do think it just shows that yes, you have to feed the fans to keep them enthusiastic, but you can always whip us up. We'll be there
Mhm.
whenever you say
Mhm.
it, right? So I think the lesson is to slow down and wait till things are really strongly guaranteed before you announce them.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. Be slow and patient. Maybe make us like beg for like when's the next thing coming out?
Yeah.
Because we're kind of in that period now, right? Because there isn't really like beyond Ahsoka season 2 and Maul Shadow Lord, like we're down to no live action Disney Plus series that's like announced after this. And
Yeah.
theoretically Maul Shadow Lord will be the animated show for about 3 to 4 years now. But nothing concurrently happening alongside that. So maybe like the Ninth Jedi, which is probably their biggest swing, perhaps, because
Yeah.
if you have not watched Visions at all, you might be out in the out in left field trying to catch up with that one. Um, we're kind of hitting this like new Wild West territory with Disney Plus because they're running out of like the things they announced then to like mine from in their
Yeah.
future things. And they're even taking the things that were meant to be for Disney Plus, aka The Mandalorian and Grogu, and taking it back to the cinema and being like, hey, go watch it here where we can make more money theoretically than just putting it on this streaming platform here.
And that seems to be what all the companies
Yeah,
have
that's right. They're all
learned.
doing this.
Right, is like if you put the marketing push and you get the word of mouth of even a small theatrical run, then that just makes the numbers go crazy good on the service, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we are, who knows when we were recording. Sorry, that's something I say on our Wheel of Time show a lot, and it doesn't carry over. Who knows when we're recording, but I would say that Wake Up Dead Man just demonstrated this, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of positive buzz with a good little Thanksgiving run, and a lot of people got excited going out to see it. And not a lot of people could, right? The audience was small, but then people tuned right in on that Friday night because they were aware it was coming out. They'd seen
That's right.
the marketing push, and I think Disney just had a really big hit with Zootopia 2, which I actually think was at some point a Disney Plus project. I know there was some.
They released a Disney a Plus show called Zootopia Plus. So they did do a semi
Yeah.
1.5 sequel. It's really intermixed with the first film. Like it's like
Okay.
added vignettes for characters that you saw in the movie as it's happening.
And but I do think it shows that people will still go to the movies if
Yeah.
it feels fun and vital, and the time of year matters. I thought it was nuts going to the theater over Thanksgiving because people were there for Wicked, for Good, and for Zootopia, and it's like, oh, this is like really busy compared to how it normally is. And everybody was there with their pack of kids. They don't mind shelling out the money for it. And I hope that's what we see in May. I think we could all, I would say for both Avengers Doomsday and Mando and Grogu, I'd
Mhm.
love to see a big time at the movie theaters for both of those. But I'm nervous. I don't think either of those are a guarantee. Avengers Doomsday is a little more of a guarantee just because people love Avengers movies. But,
But how much
you
of a
know,
guarantee is the question, I guess.
yeah, it'll probably be, if I had to guess now, it'll be similar to Wicked for Good, where you get a big opening weekend because people are excited, and then you see a big drop off because unless it's incredible, people aren't going to go over and over and over again the way they used to.
That's the hope. I mean, they're theoretically filming Doomsday and Secret Wars pretty close back to back, so the budget is probably going to be the same that they've
Yeah,
set out for both of them. But it's probably a combined $500 million at least production budget. So that means
all
this
those
film,
chairs,
yeah,
all the
all those
people who sit
chairs.
in
That's
those
right. All
chairs.
all the people, all the extras that they stunt extras and whatnot. This film probably needs to make a billion in order to even be considered profitable, which
Yeah.
is wild. To even, I mean, we're minutes away from Avatar coming out, and that also needs to basically hit a billion in order to be considered somewhat profitable.
Yeah.
It needs to hit a billion, like 1.2 probably, in order to get a sequel greenlit at this point, which is
Well, and
wild to
it's
say.
crazy that Avatar can drop 50% from the last film to this film and still like be the top grossing movie of the year by
It'll be the
far.
top
So
grossing film of this year and arguably next year too, because of when it
yeah.
comes out. and still be in the top 10 of film, like total box office of films, not inflation included. Um, which so Avatar would have 3 in the top 10 theoretically, even if it does have like a major drop off. But that just
Yeah.
showcases how like it just prints money. That franchise is
Yeah,
crazy.
it's crazy. I'm tired of the takes on the internet like it's a bad franchise. It doesn't matter because it's like everybody goes. Like,
They go. You being an internet keyboard warrior is not stopping people from going, and they're probably
yeah,
going
yeah,
themselves too. So why they're just adding to a like
yeah.
nobody wants this hype. But I think they're great movies. So I've never said, well, I'm not watching Avatar.
And,
I
and we
haven't.
just, I mean, we did our own investor call. Look at that. Avatar, then roll into Mando and Grogu and Avengers Doomsday. Disney's got a lot. I think we missed a animated movie this spring, comes out before then, Hoppers, which
Oh,
is
Hoppers. Yes.
animated Avatar, basically.
Yes. Yes, it
So,
is.
yeah.
Having seen a couple clips from that movie, I can tell you it's great. Also, Toy Story
Yeah.
5 is this summer too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
going to print money. And the sleeper hit there in May, just before Mandalorian and Grogu, as I'm looking at the May competitor schedule. Disney's got a little bit of a competitor 2 weeks beforehand. Devil Wears Prada 2, which is going to be a sleeper hit. I bet you. There's going to be a lot of people
Yeah.
going out to see that.
Yeah, that is pure counter programming
It
gold.
really is.
Moms who loved that will take their daughters to it now, and yeah, a
Even
lot of
guys
people
love that movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Who doesn't
It's
love Tucci?
That's right. It's a 4 quadrants kind of movie there. Everyone's
Yeah.
going to go see it. So looking great for
Also, big cardboard displays for that now.
That is
Giant
true.
high heel shoes showed up,
The
so yeah,
giant-
we'll be there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, this has been a look back at the Disney investor call from 2020. A wild day, a truly time and place. You had to be there, folks. You can still watch it if you want to relive the optimism of that moment. I think that's the really sad part. Is like it was a really optimistic day. Everyone had high feelings. We needed it at that time. As the world was crumbling around us, things weren't certain about things. Zoom calls were the name of the day. You were probably teaching classes on Zoom at that point, and grading papers via Blackboard.
Yeah.
Assigning homework, sending people into breakout rooms, all that fun stuff. You just had to have been alive, folks. This is a truly threshold moment, and what we were living at. That theaters weren't even open yet, as I recall. Like maybe just a handful, because the day and date was the big HBO thing that happened a few weeks later with Wonder Woman kind of being that.
And Wonder Woman was the first. So
but
by the time we get to
Regals weren't open
Batman,
until the summer yet.
yeah,
For my money there, AMC's were the one that opened, but you could rent out the theater for $100 if you wanted to be in it by yourself, not have to deal with people.
Yeah, I think I didn't go. The first movie I saw post pandemic was Minari. Just another blockbuster. I love Minari. There's no slam on Minari, but it's a very small movie. But I think that was April. So yeah.
Yeah, I think ours was A Quiet Place 2.
Oh, okay.
The first one back in. And
that was like June, right?
That was
a little later.
That was when Regal opened up again. So
Okay.
the Regal by our place, and we're loyal to Regal. So this is a plug for Regal Cinemas, everybody.
Wow.
A truly unlimited.
We have a real Jets and Sharks energy on this podcast now.
So yeah, another pandemic release was Spielberg's West Side Story, folks. Go check that out because not a lot of people did. Anywho, that is our look back at the Disney investor call. Greg, thank you for joining the podcast here today. Where can the folks find you if they want to continue the conversation or say, hey, I'm really looking forward to that Taika Waititi movie. Why don't you talk about it more? Tell us where they can find you and have that conversation.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for having me on. Actually, felt a little long take-ish talking about Hollywood, talking about the Hollywood business, not just Star Wars. So, people can find me on those 2 podcasts Anthony mentioned. The Breakfast Pack on Rebel Base Card is slowly working our way through Andor season 2, second breakfast rewatch, and then the long take review is in the heat of Oscar races right now. I think Golden Globes maybe just happened. Nope, Golden Globes are about to happen. Get excited, get ready. This is your pre-work. But we're doing lots of work over there to catch up on awards movies. You know, it's always an exciting moment when you really see the kind of race come together, and you know what you need to see. You get the checklist ready. So undoubtedly, I'm over on Letterboxd checking off those awards movies. So people can find me over there at EyeOnCanon.
Wonderful, Greg. Yeah, folks, go check that out. And especially as the award season approaches, the long take review is your place for all the reviews and just commentary about what to expect as the race for towards best picture, towards best director, towards best actor, best actress, etc. is coming your way. And I assume Jen will also print out the the take your picks
The ballot.
ballot.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
missing that word here after 2 hours of recording. Ballot. Yes, that's the word that people use. I'm sure Jen will do that. If nothing else, I will bother her to make one, just so that that was a lot of fun last year. Was keeping up with all of you guys and actually doing pretty well comparatively. Darn you,
Not too
Wicked, for
bad.
taking a few more than I expected. I could have had a perfect score last year if it wasn't for Wicked.
Mm.
Shame indeed. This won't happen again. Won't happen again. I bet you.
Yeah.
Anywho, folks, thank you very much for listening to this episode here. We'll be back in your podcast feeds next week with something in the Lucasfilm and Star Wars adjacent galaxy. And until then, may the force be with you. Take care.